Hello and welcome back to the Data Privacy Lawyer. My name is Funmi Owolabi and I am a privacy attorney and I am the principal attorney at the firm. Today's review, we're going to be looking at a privacy notice. So this is in relation to an organization that is based in the United Kingdom. Actually, I'm going to work through the cookies this time so we can see here a couple things. They've put this banner. So anytime you land on a site and you see this, it's what we as privacy professionals consider to be a cookie banner. That's what we call this. So we've got these three buttons. We've got a button that says accept or reject additional and manage preferences. Now, the first thing I want to say is that you can see there's a difference in color for the buttons. One of the buttons is yellow and black writing. Another of the buttons is blue with white writing, right? In some geographies, this inconsistency with the colors could put a business into a bit of bother. But it depends on the geography. And that's why I mentioned the United Kingdom at the beginning of this discussion. The consistency in your cookie banner mustn't influence an individual on which button to click, which is why some geographies require the colors of the buttons to be the same color. It's interesting because as I've hovered over this several times, the button color has changed. Did you see that? Originally it was yellow. Now it's white with blue writing, and this one is blue with white writing, right? Now, there's something in the data protection space known as a dark pattern. A dark pattern influences a consumer on how they should proceed based on psychology. Now, let's actually manage our preferences. I generally, if you've watched any reviews on my channel, you'll know that I always reject all of the cookies associated with my interaction with a site. But I think it's valuable, and even though this is a privacy notice review, cookies are considered personal data. In many geographies, prior to processing personal data, you have to provide notice, which is what that cookie banner is. And then you have to give, in some geographies, the opportunity for individuals to opt in or opt out of certain processing activities, of which collecting cookies is one. So you can see this button, there's off, and then if I switch it on, it goes to blue. So what I wanted to say is that these buttons are off right now. And when I clicked on the Manage Preference Center, they had been off. In the United States, the requirements for businesses is to give consumers or individuals the opportunity to opt out. On some web pages, you'll see that you've already been opted in, and then you have the opportunity to opt out. That's very important. And what it gives me clues into is, it gives me clues into the geographies that may be applicable to a business. We already know that this is applicable in the United Kingdom because of the URL. And then we also know because they have a registered office in Bristol. So your cookie banner needs to align in the geographies where you process personal data. Many organizations will take a global approach, meaning they will allow everybody the opportunity to opt in. But some organizations will roll out their cookie preference and cookie consent flow in a manner that's consistent with what the geography requires. And they know the geography because they capture your IP address, and your IP address is considered personal data. All right, so I'm going to reject additional. Let's get to the notice. Okay, let's talk about this. I think it's really valuable to look at obligations related to not-for-profit companies, because not-for-profit companies also process personal data. Now, in the United States, there's many US state privacy laws that don't require not-for-profit organizations to adhere to the US state privacy laws. Now, in the United States, we look at privacy on a federal level, industry level, and then we also look at it on a state level because it's fragmented. In the European Union and in the United Kingdom, they adhere to the comprehensive privacy legislation, also known as the GDPR. Now, what's really important to note that I want to discuss is the fact that the manner in which the data is processed is very influential, as is the geography where the personal data is processed to. What's unique about our world in 2026 is, even if an organization is registered in one country, if they're going to process personal data outside of that country, they still need to take into consideration the privacy laws in those geographies. Now, I am a US resident. Yes, I am English, but I am a US resident. So the privacy laws generally, there are some nuances to this, but they generally will follow the place in which you're a resident. Now, there are many privacy laws that don't adhere to that standard. That's something that the business needs to figure out itself. And so I am consuming this website as a US resident. I'm not in England right now. So this notice needs to take into consideration that the visitors to its site may be in a geography outside of where it anticipates its users will come from. Now, it's a not-for-profit. I presume that even if they're registered in England, they're a charity that would accept money from a US resident. If they're going to be accepting money, let's say I was to give to their not-for-profit company, they would likely process some of my personal data, like my name, like my email address, my phone number. Maybe they want to send me correspondence about my charitable giving. Because they will process personal data of a US resident, their notice needs to anticipate that and address any obligations they have under the US privacy laws. Privacy doesn't just move with where you as a business are headquartered. It moves with where you process personal data. Let's talk about legal basis. I talked a lot in other reviews about legal basis, but what I really want to say here is, in order for you to conduct a processing activity is an operation or set of operations on personal data. You as a business need to always have a legal basis. So for example, business A, company A wants to conduct a marketing activity. The marketing activity is so that they can market and communicate with prospective customers. In order to conduct that activity, that marketing communication, they need to rely on a legal basis. Now, depending on the geography where they want to conduct this activity will influence which legal basis they can rely on in each geography. Some geographies don't recognize legitimate interest as a legal basis. So in order for company A to conduct its marketing activity in that geography, they wouldn't be able to rely on legitimate interest. They would need to look for another legal basis that is applicable in that geography. So what I generally recommend is businesses list out every processing activity on something called a record of processing activity. The record of processing activity dictates every processing activity that a business does. We do marketing activities. We employ people. We hire candidates. Every processing activity, and then list out the lawful basis to the left on which a business is going to rely on in order to conduct that activity. That needs to be done. And actually, that's a legal requirement in the European Union. So I really hope you enjoyed this particular review. If you have comments or questions about what I've stated, leave a comment below and I'll see you in another one.